Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Helen and today I'm going to be doing my TBR for September. So for September I'm only doing one readathon, and that is Becca's BookoplAthon. This is a readathon based around Becca's TBR game, which is based around a Bookopoly board, a Monopoly board but about books. So as you can see, I have the board here. I don't have a colour printer, so I printed it out in black and white and then coloured it in. Essentially, what you do is you roll dice and you move a counter around the board, and wherever you land, that is what book you have to read. Okay, so as you can see, I've got all the bits to play this. I've got the board, I've got some dice here, and I have a counter. This is a pin. I can't hold it. This is a pin badge, but I'm using it as my little counter. It's a little owl of Athena. I'm going to be doing 10 rolls, which is 10 books. If you roll a double, you have to roll again. So let's hope I don't roll too many doubles. But I was about to put my dice away, sorry. 10 books is about what I can read very easily in a month. I'm starting university next month, so I don't want to pick way too many books and then not read them. I want to be able to read the books I choose, so I thought that 10 rolls would be doable. Okay, let's get into roll number 1. So the first roll is 6. So let's start on go. So, roll number 1 was read a book with a dark cover, and for that I'm going to read Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. This is about a vampire called Lestrade who is interviewed by a young boy and tells the story of his life, which has spanned many centuries and has been filled with death and blood and all the things you'd expect a vampire's life to be filled with. And this sounds like the perfect book to take me into autumn, so I'm really looking forward to it. Yes, I have several candles inspired by it, so I'll definitely be lighting those while I read it. 8. So the next roll was read a book with LGBTQIA+ themes, and for that I'm going to read Maurice by E.M Foster. I don't know very much about this. I know it's a classic and that E.M Foster himself was gay, but I'm really interested to read it. I know it's about a man at Cambridge who falls in love with another man. I think he's a professor and he falls in love with a groundskeeper or something. So there's elements of class and overcoming class within it. And in general, I'm really excited to read this. It's a book that I definitely should have read a very long time ago. The only other thing I know about this was that it was published in the 1970s after E.M Foster died because it was considered so scandalous at the time, and that the dedication is dedicated to a happier year. And on to roll number 3. 6. Roll number 3 was Becca Recommends, and I went and watched Becca's Best Books of 2019 video and was kind of surprised by how many I'd read. However, one I hadn't read and one I've been meaning to read for a while is The Furies by Lowe. The Furies is about a group of 4 girls, and there were 5, however one of them was found dead on a swing seat wearing a white dress that I think is almost sacrificial earlier that year. And the 4 girls have not talked about what's happened until now, and something happens and one of them talks about it. And I think it's a murder mystery. Well, obviously it's a murder mystery. I think it's also got a lot of elements of witchcraft and the supernatural in it. So perfect for autumn and September. Also the sort of book that I love. So this looks utterly amazing and has gone on my TBR. And now let's get on to roll number 4. And we're on to roll number 4. And we've got a double, but that's 10. Okay, so we've had our first double, but that's fine. 11 books is doable. And this prompt was 5-star prediction, and for that I'm going to be reading Ghostwritten by David Mitchell. Ghostwritten is a series of short stories that don't seem to connect, and then somehow they do connect, and all the characters in the short stories have something linking them. I've read several books by David Mitchell. I've read The Bone Clocks and The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet, so I'm very excited to read this. I think it looks really good, and I really enjoy his writing style, so I'm very interested to see how he works with short stories. It does intimidate me a bit. I don't know why. I think it's because everyone has been telling me for ages how brilliant this book is, so now I'm like, but what if I hate it? But I'm sure I won't, and it's a 5-star prediction for me, so it better not disappoint. And yeah, this is the next book going on to my TBR. And on to roll number 5. It's another double. Okay, and it's actually another 10, so yep. And we have another double because yes, of course we do. So roll number 5 was randomized TBR. So I'm going to do that now. I have roughly 196 books on my TBR. I will put up the little randomizy thing, the random number generator I use somewhere on the screen. Okay, so I've randomly generated it and I have picked number 118. So I'm now going to go and count all my books and find out which one that is. Book 118 on my shelves is The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. This is another classic that I know very little about. It's an American classic and I don't read many of those. I'll be reading something different, but I believe, this is very tenuous, I believe that this follows a countess who is fleeing from an abusive husband and is either about the legal battles or about her trying to find freedom and safety in America. I think she manages to seduce someone who is already engaged to be married to someone else, so you know, drama. But this looks really good and it's quite short, so honestly I'm quite glad that the randomizing my TBR picked this and not something like Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow. So yay! Bookopoly is actually being fairly kind to me so far despite the 2 doubles we've had. Most of the reads look really interesting and I'm really looking forward to all of them, so that is a positive. Seven. Chance card. Oh god. Roll 6 was a chance card. Just to quickly explain what chance cards are, as one has just come up. Chance cards are 8 books that you're really excited to read and 8 books that you're less excited to read. And I pulled this chance card, which it's The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. So The Radium Girls by Kate Moore is a non-fiction book about the girls who worked with radium in the early decades of the 1900s, specifically I think the 1920s. And these girls obviously got very ill and eventually most of them died because of the radium that they were dabbing onto things. And this book specifically is about their lives, but also about the legal battle that they got into with their employer who refused to claim responsibility. And this looks at their diary entries and letters and the legal battle that ensued, and I'm really glad it's come up because it looks brilliant. And on to roll number 7. Okay, so that's 4 and another double. Of course that was another double. We're now up to 13 rolls, which is making the more superstitious side of me a little bit worried, but oh well. And this prompt was disability rep. So for the prompt disability rep, I've decided to read The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd-Jones. The Bone Houses is about a group of families who work with bone houses, which are the dead who rise after their spirits have left them. It's a fantasy novel, and the disability rep is when one day a young girl comes to the town. I think she's a seer and she has fibromyalgia or chronic pain, and as soon as she arrives the dead start to become much more frequent, and she and the other main character, who is one of these persons who can raise the bone houses, must work together to work out why they are rising more frequently and why her coming there has triggered this sudden influx of the dead. And it sounds like a really interesting read. It sounds fascinating. The whole concept is really intriguing. On to roll number 8. You've got to be kidding. 4 and another double. Well, it's not unlucky 13 anymore, but it's another double. Annoying. The Bookopoly gods really hate me. I was hoping to have a nice calm month and read a lot and be nice and chill and then go off to university and maybe read like 1 book there, but no. Yay. Okay, so for this prompt I landed on poll pick, and this means I will put a poll up on my Twitter, which is @CatsandTeaBooks. So the 4 books I've chosen are The Gilded Ones by Namina How Much of These Hills is Gold by C. Pam Zhang, In an Absent Dream by Seanan Maguire, and Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. I don't know very much about any of these books. The Gilded Ones is the first book in a fantasy series about demons or girls who become demons and have to fight for a warrior king. Sounds really intriguing. How Much of These Hills Is Gold is a historical fiction about the gold rush in America and two young boys who are just coming out of it and walking across the American plains with the body of their father and a shotgun on their back. In an Absent Dream is the fourth book in the Wayward Children series, which is set in Eleanor West's home for wayward children and is about children who've gone to Portal Worlds and come back and don't know what to do with themselves and go to this school.
So I gave a really bad description of Cemetery Boys, but what it's about is a young man who is trying to prove his identity to his family, his gender identity, and in his family men have magic that women don't. So he decides to use this magic to prove that he is a man, and in order to help him, he summons the ghost of his cousin. But he summons the wrong ghost, and instead of the ghost of his cousin, he summons the school's bad boy, who is determined to prove that something nefarious was happening around his death and that he did not die naturally.
On to roll number 9. 7. And it's another chance card. And for this one, I got another book I'm very excited for. It's The Paying Guests by Sarah Waters. And while I am really excited for this, it is also 600 pages long, but I guess we're reading it now. The Paying Guests is a historical fiction and it follows a mother and daughter living in London at the end of the First World War. And the father of this girl, Frances, has just died. So she doesn't know what to do, she's grieving, and she has to deal with renters coming into the house in order for the family to make up the lost money. I think this has themes of class in it because the people who come in are of a lower class than Frances and her mother. It's another book I don't know very much about, but I really enjoyed The Little Stranger, which I read a few years ago, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one. On to roll number 10. So that's 7. So roll number 10 was read a book with nature on the cover. I have decided to read The Scandalous Lady W, and I'm not sure if this entirely counts, but it has a little bit of a hill behind it and the sky, so I'm counting this as nature. Scandalous Lady W is about one of the most highly publicised divorce cases of Georgian England, and this marriage that ends tragically began looking like a fairy tale. However, it soon came out that the husband had at the time what was considered incredibly perverted desires, and him and the wife were getting into all sorts of escapades with a young man. Unfortunately, the wife fell in love with this young man and ran off with him. What followed was a divorce that really shocked Georgian England because obviously these were not the things a well-behaved young couple got up to. And there is a BBC programme of this which I have watched. It's really excellent and I highly recommend it, even if you just watch it for the costumes, because Georgian clothes were just more elegant than our clothes today. I'm really looking forward to reading this as well. It's fairly short, it's a non-fiction, and I really like Hallie Rubenhold's style of writing non-fiction. I read The Five earlier this year, and in general, I really want to learn more about this, and I'm sure it'll touch on greater things like marriage in Georgian England, divorce in Georgian England, the law, all of that sort of stuff. So this is going on the TBR as my 10th book. And now on to roll number 11. 10. So roll number 11 was highest rated on your TBR. So I'm going to put up my Goodreads TBR here and have a scroll through it. And I should say that I'm not going to be picking a book that isn't out yet for obvious reasons. There are quite a few books on here that while I would love to read them, they are not released. So the highest rated book on my TBR that is out is The Missing of the Clair-de-Lune. So the book that I'm going to be reading is The Missing of the Clair-de-Lune by Christelle Dabos. This is the sequel to A Winter's Promise, which is the first book in the Mirror Visitors series. It's set in a really cool sci-fi meets fantasy world, and in it we follow Ophelia, who really does not want to get married and just wants to live in her house looking after artifacts and working as a librarian. Relatable. However, one day she gets told that she is going to marry this man from the much more Nordic planets, or I can't remember what they're called. They're like floating things in the sky that have like lifts up and down them. They're really cool. But anyway, she's gonna marry a man from one of the really Arctic ones. And when he turns up, Ophelia hates him on sight. He seems really brusque and rude, and just in general she doesn't like him, but she has to go with him anyway. So she goes with him and she ends up in this world of really intense and tangled politics, and it's a really fun series. But yeah, this is the highest rated book on my TBR, and honestly I'm very glad that I'm finally getting the chance to read it. On to roll number 12. 7. So roll number 12 was once again dark cover, and for this I'm choosing A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. A Great and Terrible Beauty is set in a boarding school and is about a girl who has just come to England and I think discovers that she has magical powers and has to use them for something. I know almost nothing about this book and I'm intending to go into it knowing almost nothing. When I picked up The Diviners, which is another series by Libba Bray and one of my favourite series is non-stop, all I knew was that it was set in 1920s America. So I'm hoping to go into this knowing, again, absolutely nothing, because I think hopefully it'll turn out that I'll love it and that I'll be nicely surprised. And on to the penultimate roll. 11. And it's a community shelf card. So the penultimate roll was a community shelf card, and the community shelf cards are cards on which I've written 16 prompts, and the prompt I picked up was Read a Classic. And for this I've decided to choose The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. This is the classic that inspired Easy A, which is a great film and one of my favourite films. So this is about Hester Prynne, who sleeps with a man who isn't her husband or sleeps with someone out of wedlock and is therefore branded an adulteress and has an A sewn onto all her clothing. I think it's set in a New England village in the 1600s or something, and it's a very puritanical village. So it's about her and her daughter's struggles for survival in this very cruel and puritanical village. And I also have this on audiobook, which is another reason why I've picked it up, so I can listen to the audiobook if I don't get a chance to read it. Let's go on to the final, hopefully, keep your fingers crossed for me. Roll number 14. Bookopoly hates me. 6. I'm gonna restart that. I'm dropping everything. Right. 6. So this is thankfully the final roll, and the prompt was Stand Alone, and for that I'm going to read The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. I think this is an enemies to lovers romance about a girl who goes to kill the king and then doesn't, but I don't know very much more than that. I know a lot of people love this and that it's been really highly reviewed by a lot of people. This is the FairyLoot edition. It's purple and lovely and majestic. I also had this as an ebook because just before I got the FairyLoot box it came in, I downloaded it on ebook to read it. So I have it on both editions, so I can switch if I want to, or if I don't get to it before September the 20th, I can still read it. So yeah, this is the final book, and honestly it looks pretty good. These are the 9 physical books I can count, I promise. I think it's 9. Is it 10? I don't actually know. Oh well, these are the physical books I'm reading, plus some ebooks, plus whatever you choose for me to read for the poll pick. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed filming it, even if Bookopoly clearly is not my friend. It was a really interesting way to choose my reads for the month. I'm really looking forward to reading all of these. I think it'll be a really interesting month, and I'm hopefully gonna vlog it, but you can watch those. I say this and then always fail, but hopefully it'll work this time. Please go choose a book from the poll on my Twitter. I will link it down below. I will link all my social media down below as always, and I hope to see you in my next video. Please let me know if you read any of these, what you thought of them, if you liked them, if you didn't like them, all of that sort of stuff. I'm dropping books everywhere in the comments. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!